Let's take a look at this streamlined D2C e-commerce business with incredible scale and growth, a 90,000 person email list, and $909,000 of STE, recently listed for sale at an asking price of $670,000 plus inventory. That is a 0.68x multiple. Yes, less than 1x multiple. I don't really know what this business is yet because all I've seen is just what I've got on the screen here. I was skimming businesses for sale this morning. I clicked onto this and I'm like, hey, this just seems really interesting. Let me turn on the camera here and kind of record as I go through this business listing. So if you're out there and you're considering acquiring an established online business, you're probably going to find this helpful and insightful. And if you do, you know the drill. Smash that like button to help me out in the YouTube algorithm here. I'm going to go through, pick out some of the key details from this business listing, and then I will go back and talk about the details, maybe in order, maybe not in order, depending on how I remember things, and share some of my own experience-based insight. I've owned businesses for over 15 years now. I was doing the quick math if it's been 15 years or not. It has been over 15. I started my first e-commerce business in 2009, and since then I have started businesses, acquired businesses, sold businesses, both online and offline businesses. Most recently, I acquired an online business that is in the accounting continuing professional education space in August of 2024. All right, so anyways, let's get into this business right here. There's a lot to love right from this headline, right down to the multiple. But whenever I see a low multiple like this of 0.68, in the context of a bunch of other positive attributes, I'm like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with this business? So that's kind of the approach I'm taking to it as I skim through it here. It's done revenue of $7,956,000 and generated income of $980,000. Launched in May 2024, this streamlined e-commerce business sells mini retro cameras that capture photos and videos with a nostalgic VHS aesthetic, as well as handheld gaming consoles. It quickly established itself in the nostalgia tech market with its $49.99 flagship camera. Revenue comes primarily from a Shopify store with 93% of traffic from paid channels and 7% from organic sources with built-in upsells within the checkout process. AOV of $80 to $90, an email list of 90,000. The brand is focused most of its efforts on Meta, 90%, and Google PPC at 10%. A 3PL partner handles all inventory management and global fulfillment. This business is not a drop shipping business, but owns the inventory in the warehouse, which is a 3PL. Shipping times are 8 to 12 days from when an order is placed to most countries. The brand has gained significant traction with over 10.5 million views across social platforms, blah, blah, blah. And the current owners are selling to focus on fewer ventures simultaneously. The business requires about 30 hours a week of oversight with contractors handling support. Okay. My first take on reading this here is that this is a e-commerce business that somebody very skilled at finding products and pumping them with meta ads spun up really quickly. That's what this really is here. It started in May 2024. This business is a year and a half old. It's generated $8 million in revenue. Holy shit, that number is impressive. The product, $49.99 flagship camera, and the gaming consoles, that kind of threw me for a little bit of a curveball, right? Like they're two different products. I would wonder what the split is between the VHS camera thing and the gaming consoles. I doubt that there's any overlap between the consumer base. They seem like totally unique, but this business seems to be in the realm or kind of in the niche of selling nostalgia tech. And I don't even know if I'd call it a business. It's more like two winning products that generate $8 million a year in revenue. I think we'll kind of come back to the concept of that in a minute. Selling a lot with meta ads, and they've got a 3PL partner. So in the context of this business, this is a very strong attribute that they're actually taking the inventory, holding it, and they've got a 3PL in place. So they're not drop shipping it, and this keeps out the traditional dropship business model spin-up competitors, right, that see this like, oh, hey, let's find the dropship supplier and sell it ourselves, get into the business. That 3PL really keeps them out. I like that. It's a very strong attribute to have. They're holding the inventory. So as a buyer, you've got to be prepared to pay for the inventory in addition to the asking price of the business. Not necessarily a bad thing at all here. In this case, I think this is good. This is a positive attribute above what would be a traditional drop shipping business. I think that basically about covers it for what the business is. I think that we would all kind of understand at this point what it is. What are the risks to this business going forward here? And that is that this business is probably not that difficult to get in. Number one, if you have a little bit of capital and the experience running ads, you can find the supplier of these, get them to a 3PL, and start pumping ads. You got competition right there. It's pretty easy to spin up. The other thing is the advertising platform itself, right? Whereas Meta, 90%, okay? What happens often when you find a winning product or offer is that you can initially, for the first several months, have very, very high scale as the audience has never been reached with that offer, right? Like you're reaching this audience of people that's like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. And then you're cranking up your ad spend, you're making a bunch of sales, and things really take off. But eventually, the algorithm serves it up to all the people that really want to buy it. It kind of satiates that strong demand. And then what you find going forward is that your return on ad spend starts to decline. And this happens all the time. It's happened in my own businesses. You literally just take off, you find that winning audience offer fit, and you crank it up, and you get like, several months to a year of just absolutely raking in the sales and money. But then as you exploit that audience, your return on ad spend goes down. It's not to say that it's going to go to zero, but the return on ad spend that they've been having so far is probably not likely to continue going forward. That is something you really have to consider as the buyer. And then with that, if competition comes in, right, and your return on ad spend is, let's just say 10x, but then you get somebody out there running essentially the same product. And yes, I know that you can differentiate and all that, but fundamentally, it's the same product. It's the same offer. It is satiating the demand for a nostalgic VHS style camera. That return on ad spend will effectively be cut in half if they are spending money on ads aggressively. Aside from all the creative differentiation and branding and all that baloney, the core offer is what matters when it comes to running ads on a platform. Yeah, I get really worked up because a lot of people are like, oh, make different ads, change your creative. And that really doesn't matter too much. There's this, kind of classic old school saying, the success of your ads is 40% audience, 40% offer, 20% creative. I would say that it's like 45% audience, 45% offer, 10% creative. It is really about the audience and the offer. And, no matter how you differentiate things, no matter how good of creative you come up with, somebody else that's running fundamentally the same offer that is a skilled advertiser with a high budget will significantly erode away your return on ad spend. So you also have that. Yeah, so considering the business model and the risk, is this business worth buying? What is my take on the valuation and who should buy it? Let me share some of my thoughts on that. And I don't really know if I have any thoughts. Let me think about them and pull them all together. First up, the valuation here, right? Like you've got an income stream of $980,000. You've got you've got a winning product and a winning audience and offer. I think that fundamentally the business model here is not worth very much. It's maybe worth a couple $100,000 plus inventory. So then you have to do the math and ultimately figure out the income. And what is the income going to be going forward for the next 1 year at least? In a more stable business or more solid business model, I would say 1 year. In a business like this, I think you really need to factor in decline of ad spend and the assumption that competition will come up, because it does come up. There are people out there that base their whole business on looking for what's already winning and coming up and competing with you. And, it's not a few people that are doing that. There are people with very large budgets doing that. And this may be one of them. They may have knocked off, another nostalgic tech style audience and offer. So yeah, you'd really need to forecast that out, see what the decline in return on ad spend has been. And I'm going to guess that the decline in return on ad spend has started, and kind of forecast out what that would be and ultimately how much income is going to be coming from that and assign a multiple to it. And that really is only applicable if you are the right person to buy this business. And who is the right person to buy this business? It is somebody that is very, very good at paid advertising, and someone that has a lot of experience, certainly running the Google PPC and maybe other platforms like Reddit or Microsoft Ads. Surprisingly, there's a lot of traffic there. Or even those native ad platforms that are kind of like almost clickbait display ads, like Taboola, or what's the other one? Outbrain. All right, somebody that can pull the traffic onto that. And then somebody that also has experience reselling to the audience other products. So somebody that would go out and find other products and resell them to that, where's that 90,000 email list, right? And I'm going to assume that some of them are ultimately past customers. Yeah, that is really who should buy the business, because this, this business was started by a very successful advertiser, and you'd be very hard pressed to believe that you're going to come into this and run this better than the actual creator of the business. So personally speaking, this is not a business I would get into, as, even though I am a very experienced advertiser and I've had a lot of great success running ads for e-commerce and digital products, physical and digital e-commerce products and leads, had a lot of success. I'm certainly no amateur when it comes to it, but I really wouldn't be interested in this, because I would want to get into something that is a business model that has a little bit more meat and potatoes, not where I'm jumping into it and like, okay, hey, I got to figure out the next advertising platform. I just want to find something where I can do, what they're already doing a little bit better, and where the business model is ultimately a little bit more robust. So is it worth this $670,000 plus inventory? Yes, probably to the right buyer, but I don't know how else to say it. There's not very many right buyers out there for this business, because a lot of them that are in my shoes, right, that have that paid advertising experience, are going to look at this and say, well, if I really wanted to get into the product, kind of one product to ads business, I could just kind of spin this up myself without necessarily doing that. That said, if I did want to get into it, it'd be certainly worth looking at this and seeing what's going on, right? Maybe there's another case here for getting this product on Amazon, or building a brand and social community around this business. There's certainly bull market opportunities for this, or bull case opportunities, I should say, for this business, since they found that product offer fit. But still, whoever gets it is going to really have to make a big pivot in the business to stabilize it and continue growing it going forward. It's not really, if you just get in there and just operate the business as it is, it's going to stay stable and grow. It's really not one of those businesses. On that note, if you are interested in acquiring a business that is more stable in nature, time-tested, and profitable, I suggest checking out my newsletter at acumenwire.com. It's a newsletter I run where I send out online businesses that were recently listed for sale with a focus on established, profitable, and time-tested businesses, and occasionally other businesses like the one I just shared with you guys here. I'll put a link below to acumenwire.com so you can head on over there and get signed up. Now, one other thing I want to touch on, actually, or should have touched on, is this plus inventory here. This means that as the buyer, and I think this is implied, if you're at this video, you probably already know it, you got to come on, you got to pay for the inventory when you acquire the business. We don't know what the value of that inventory is, so that could be $50,000, could be $100,000, could be $1 million, right? You got to kind of figure that out. How much inventory are they sitting on? Now, some people will say the inventory should be included in the asking price. And as a buyer, yes, I like that to be the case, but fundamentally, I understand why brokers do this here, and that is simply to get the initial number of the business lower, because all of the other brokers are doing it, right? If they included inventory and the multiple was higher, people would be looking at this relative to other businesses where the inventory is not included. So ultimately, to sell the businesses, the broker, and it's not necessarily the broker that has to do this, the seller, if they were selling it independently, would probably be wisest and suggest it. At least I would suggest it, and I would list it this way myself by simply asking, listing the asking price and then saying, hey, the inventory is not considered a part of the valuation or the asset value of the actual business as we have it listed here. So as the buyer, I don't really like it, but I understand that is really the best way of doing it. And I guess one more thing here before I wind down and call it a wrap is the margin. Didn't really talk about the margin here, but that is a factor that needs to be considered. If we do 980 divided by 79.56, business is operating at a 12.3% margin. It's incredibly low for an e-commerce business, and I'm going to, or not incredibly low, but lower than I would like. There are, successful e-commerce businesses that operate with lower margin. But personally speaking, if I'm going to acquire a business, I would at least look for a higher margin. Anyhow, the point I want to make here is if return on ad spend is declining, this is all the room that you have to increase your ad spend or accept a lower return on ad spend and still be profitable, right? Like there's not much profitability left in this business if a return on ad spend is compressing. Like you're going to just be compressed right out. So yeah, all of these factors really kind of lead back to this 0.68x multiple. And again, I think, there's something here for the right buyer if you're in the business of and experienced with really kind of turning around or stabilizing and diversifying customer acquisition channels of one product e-commerce businesses. On that note, guys, if you found this video helpful and insightful, you know the drill. Smash that like button to help me out in the YouTube algorithm. I am calling it a wrap and signing off on that note.